Job number 2026-1015-2. We're accessing the drain through a 4-inch PVC cleanout tee located at the stack that is on the north side, northwest corner of the basement of the original building. Building is from the 1700s, according to the owner. And counter starts 0 in the spool to mimic snaking lengths, not zeroed out at the point of horizontal, just a reference distance. Counter's at 105, and we are at the city main sewer connection. We have some water flowing, cold water flowing down a hose to be able to keep the camera lens clean and to observe flow characteristics. So right now, here we're looking into the city main sewer in between the water. We took some screenshots of that earlier before the water started flowing, and there is, you can see a chunk of clay and some gravel actually in the video here, sitting on the bottom of the city main sewer. So some debris in the city main sewer. Passing back to the branch, we can see the branch connection. Looks like maybe clay connecting to a concrete fitting of some kind. Here at 103, it goes from horizontal diving down into the main at some sort of an angle before then it connects. Trying to look to see if there might be some misalignment or a gap there visible from the clay to the concrete, visible on the upper right corner of the screen. But either way, this is our point where it transitions to horizontal pipe, and that's the offset there. Pipe material here is 6-inch clay. We have a section of pooling water here. Downstream end is at 95. We do have a larger spacer on the end of the camera right now to elevate it as much as possible. So we're looking upward out of the pool. We can see the water hovering there. If we go forward, we can kind of plow down into the water. Possibly 90 feet is the upstream end, and so 90 to 95. We'll do another pass here without the larger spacer, just to get a better view of the bottom of the pipe, but this at least lets us see upward to get a view of the top and sides as much as possible. Here's our next section of cooling water. The downstream end of it appears here at about 60, at this joint at about 65. Water tapering to a deeper depth. And we know this because we use the locator, but right here around 61 feet, that is a position directly underneath the building cleanout. So our building cleanout is roughly 3 to 4 feet away from the downstream point where the pooling stops. Also, there is a break in the pipe on the top at 62. So our building cleanout's at 61. There's a hole of some kind in the pipe at 62, and the pooling stops at 64 to 65. So that gives an indication of how far underneath the front foundation wall would have to be reached to get back to a pipe that has okay pitch. Cooling continuing throughout here. Right around here at 53, we can't see it right now because the water level filled back up, but there is a 6-inch clay Y coming in from the right-hand side that is very fractured. You can see holes in it and a void in the branch. Here at around 51, we could also see before the water level rose, some kind of a hole in the top of the pipe. Here around 47 feet, we also observed some other kind of void or hole in the top of the pipe before the water level rose. Here we also saw some other kind of a hole in the top of the pipe at 33. 31, we observed approximately 4-inch PVC pipe stubbed into the side of the 6-inch clay, not by means of a fitting, but a hole made in the side of the pipe. 30, you can sort of see it there as we're pulling away. Right here at 28 to 30 feet is a 6-inch clay Y branching off. Water's getting a little clearer through here. We can see the bottom of the pipe and the path of the Y heading from right to left. So 26 feet is the start of our pooling situation. So that pool goes from 26 to 65 feet with a rather deep spot in the middle. Approaching our stack, you see some debris hanging in the top of the pipe there for some reason, hanging on. Transitioning from 6-inch clay to 4-inch clay. 6-inch clay to 4-inch PVC. PVC is just dirty over time. 4-inch floor clean out, visible in front of the stack, going out the base of our stack. Access through our PVC stack, and we have our floor clean out right there. Push pause for a moment and put on a different tip on the end of the camera so we can manipulate it a little bit. So as we pull back, it allows the we're only at 69 feet, just downstream of our large belly section. So we're just going to get a view of the top of the pipe as we pull back. So this tip lets us kind of swing the camera head up and down a little bit as we push and pull. So we're just slowly pulling back through our dip. The downstream end was at about 68. Upstream end is at about 26. So we'll at least be able to get some footage of the top of the pipe where we couldn't see anything through this section. Here's that initial hole in the pipe that we saw at about 62. Not visible with the pooling water, but we get a good view of it here. And right there is our front main clean out. We can see that the Y has quite a bit of damage and cracking going on. So from that main clean out to where the pitching stops is at about 65 feet. So roughly 4 feet beyond that clean out Y is where the interior pitching section levels back out to okay pitch. There is a section beyond that from 90 to 95 that has some pooling, but by far this building section is the worst. And again, we can see a pretty good view of the fracturing of that clean out Y at 61. Some kind of other cap fitting just upstream of the clean out Y. Might have been, who knows, a test fitting, or it could have been an old connection if there was some downspouts back in the day. But this is an extra 6-inch clay T, it looks like, on its back that's been capped off. We can see the nice round profile of that situation there. Here we have some other kind of hole in the pipe right beyond, upstream of that at 59. Really couldn't see this before with all of the water pooling.
How's it going, man? How are you?
So again, we had a hole observed in the top of the 6-inch clay here at 59 feet. Hard to tell what this is, if it's a branch of something or what, but there looks to be another void or connection point at 58. So there's several openings or holes in the pipe. It almost looks like something is connecting to the top of this pipe here at 58. Uncertain at this moment what that is doing or what it's for. some other kind of dramatic looking opening in the top of the pipe here. Pieces of clay seem to be hanging inward into this opening. Looks like something was capped off and covered up, but there's a lot of pieces hanging in. Rather large opening here at 57. Pretty good view of it. Looks like a lot of debris is just suspended there. You can also see some pretty dramatic fracturing in the top of this particular joint. Again, we're looking upward at the top of our building drain, outside of, or above the, suspended above the pooling water. We can see a view of the pooling water there from a distance. Continuing our examination of the top. Here we can see a Y connection entering in from the right, and we can see a rather significant damage situation. As we pull back enough, we can walk the camera down to look at our branch of that Y, and we can see a literal void in the arm of the Y. So significant damage to this portion of pipe. You can see the damage quite visible there. A very large hole with rocks hanging in. Some kind of a hole again made in the top of the pipe. Hard to tell whether there's a pipe connection or it's capped off with concrete, but again we can see a nice close-up view of this at 52. Again, we get a view of our pooling water section, maybe a third full. That's where the water wants to sit in the pipe. Looks like we have another hole made in the top of our clay, capped off right now. We can see some rocks overhanging there and gaps with dirt. Doesn't look like a pipe connection, but a physical hole at 47. Looks like we have another, some kind of a hole in the top of the pipe here at 45. See a void there. Water at a distance, but Here again, we have some kind of a hole in the top of our pipe, or some sort of a capped connection at 41. Another opening in the top of the pipe at 40. Another opening in the top of the pipe at 37. And again, we can still see the pooling water. Another opening in the top of the pipe at 34. Some fracturing, or roots rather. Another opening in the top of the pipe at 33. Like a pipe connection made at 31. Again, an opening in the top. See, the connection is at a distance, passing back through our 6-inch Y, or we're passing by another branch that was made in the pipe by literally coring a hole in the side and shoving PVC into the pipe. It's not a fitting. Here's our 6-inch clay Y. And it possibly looks like some damage is existing on the top of that clay Y. Here's another puzzling situation on the upper right quadrant of the pipe. It looks like a window might have been cut out. It looks rectangular in shape, and that is again not an outright void, but it's definitely missing the actual pipe. This portion of the video now is switched with the normal spacer bushing. Again, we've got our water flowing, so we can, as we're going forward now just in this section, just be able to observe what this looks like. Again, with a steady trickle, we should have a just a small, if we got good pitch, we should have a small trickle on the bottom, but yet we can see we have a wider stream forming here, suggesting not the greatest pitch, and we can already see that the camera is submerging into the water. We can see here the level of water that gets established. You can see that PVC stubbed in as we go along, and we can really see how much solids accumulates in this section here. Water is relatively clear right now, and we can see how high it is in this portion of pipe. By the kind of the shimmering along the sides there, we can see probably a half full through this deep section. And again, we have all of this solids material just sitting around. Water's displacing around it, but yet we have a lot of debris that just wants to accumulate here in this portion. And all along the way, as we noted a little bit earlier on this video, when we were using the tip that let us lift out of the water, we could see a lot of openings in the top of the existing clay pipe as well. Again, still going through our pooling section, and we're going to start to emerge out on the other side here, sort of like going up on the a sandy beach where it tapers out to a shallower depth here pretty quick. So here we're kind of coming out, tapering out to a very shallow pitch, and right here at that fitting is really what we're looking for, to have just a small trickle. So that's actually, when the water is established, that's 26 to 69 feet on the downstream end. And this is really what we'd like to see the entirety of the way. Smaller trickle. Not the greatest pitch through here. You see some widening pipe. The water is widening, so again, suggesting very low pitch through this section. This would be actually what we'd want to see the whole way through, just a trickle. So this is an example of good pitch, how the water is behaving. Again, the water is the constant, and when we have changes, then that helps us to see literally where we have issues with our slope. This is another section of deeper pooling water, starting at about 89. Water definitely is pooling here. Some solids floating around. And it tapers out to a good pitch here at 98. So that's 89 to 98 feet is that pooling section. Here, as we had seen on the beginning of our first video when we did this in reverse, this is going from horizontal, diving off to the right, and down into our city main sewer connection here. You can actually see some stones sitting in the pipe in the city main sewer, some rocks, some like river rock type stones there as the water clears. Yep, you can see that. There's a chunk of clay sitting in the city main sewer as well. But it is definitely a concrete connection with clay branching off of it. Just kind of, again, sliding back and forth at that clay connection. And that would be it.